Hello all and welcome to the Pragati Vichar Literature Festival's Authors Marathon 3.0. Today we are having the session theme as the romance theme, and the session's topic for today is love, laughter and lasting bonds. Tale of romance in three perspectives. I cannot wait to to introduce the distinguished set of panelists we are having today. These are the national bestsellers who have penned down national bestsellers. And first on the panel we are having Mr. Arpit Vageria. Arpit Vageria is one of India's most loved storytellers. He has penned several bestsellers, including You Are My Reason to Smile, Be My Perfect Ending, and I Still Think About You. Tata Motors has made a special documentary around his journey to inspire youngsters to read more. He currently writes for Indian OTT, television, and film industry. Paji, it is lovely to have you over the festival today.
Thank you so much, Atisha. Equally excited.
Next on the panel, we are having Mr. Aslam Rahman. Aslam Rahman is a seasoned banker seamlessly intertwines his financial acumen with a fervent passion for storytelling. An alumni of IM Calcutta, University of Lucknow, Mahatma Jyotiba Phule, Rolikand University, and City Montessori School of Lucknow. Aslam's literary journey mirrors the dynamic lives of young urban Indians. His debut novel, The Fortune Hunters, emerged as a national bestseller, captivating both readers and critics alike. The success continued with his second novel, Friendship Bites, achieving national bestseller within months of release. Aslamji, it is lovely to have you for the festival today.
Thank you.
Now, on the last, we are having Mr. Himanshu Rai, who is a best-selling author with a passion for storytelling. His previous novels, My Mute Girlfriend, I Am Always Here With You, Recollecting the End, Rhythm Roger, The Secrets of Lecton, and She Erased Her were highly appreciated and featured on the Amazon bestseller. Himanshu has loved writing since he was a child. He wrote Chariots of Mahabharata when he was just 14 years old. Himanshu ji, it is absolutely fine to have you with this festival today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So now, like earlier, as I told you about, the theme of the today's session is romance, and the session's name is love, laughter, and lasting bonds. Tales of romance in three perspectives. So just imagine four guys sitting on a Zoom call and talking about romance. How better could it be? So first off the bat, my first question to all of you would be: each of you has explored the theme of romance in your books, bringing unique perspective to love stories. How do you believe your personal experiences or observation shapes the portrayal of romance in your narratives? Aslamji, why don't you begin first?
Thanks, Atishai. Till now, my writing has drawn inspiration from personal experiences and observations only. In fact, my first book, The Fortune Hunters, which is based on interreligious love and marriage, is based on my own life. In my second book, Friendship Bites, some of my experiences, along with experiences of my dear friends, both good and bad, with friendship and love, has helped me in shaping my characters and the narrative. This helps in giving authentic flavor to fiction. Authenticity is the need of the hour currently in literary world and otherwise too.
Arpitji, your take on this?
So, I started writing only on and only because of my personal experience. And I think that's the easiest way to start or kind of follow any art because that's you, right? So, like everybody else, I also fell in love with someone at certain point of time. And I never thought of becoming a writer that way, but then I wanted to impress her in some way or other. So there were more talented guys who knew how to dance, and a lot many other knew how to play guitar. एंड वो हमने सुना होता है ना कि लड़कियां जो होती है वो डांस करने वाले और गिटार बजाने वाले ले जाती, सो दैट इज वेरी ट्रू. एंड आई थॉट कि व्हाट कैन आई डू टू इम्प्रेस दिस गर्ल. सो वी ऑलरेडी हैड अ थिंग फॉर ईच अदर, so that's how it started. And I thought कि maybe just write my own story, maybe just tell it to her through this book that how much do I love. And that is how I started. It might sound like an answer which is very politically correct and all, and it's more like it is a planned answer, but that is how it happened. And because of this personal experience, I started writing novels, and eventually from writing novels to television, from television to OTT. So though we broke up after a few years, I still thanked her for getting the writer out of it. So yeah, personal experience and observations, it really helped.
Himanshu ji, your perspective on this?
See, I always believe that we always say that we have the romance books are the maximum writers who are writing that, and the answer lies there only. So we all have our own personal experiences when we talk about romance, and mostly I'll say everyone is having that experience, and that the reason everyone want to bring those emotions out, and we start writing. So that the reason maximum authors who start writing with their first book, they come out with a romance book. So obviously, but my first book was not a romance. But yes, when I was asked to write a romance, I wrote My Mute Girlfriend, which is based on my own personal experience. So that's what I'm saying. Any romance, if a romance book is the first book, then you can guess 99.99% it's based on a personal experience.
Definitely. What I believe is everyone has their own story to tell. And like it is definitely a major form of communication to the audience about telling your love story, getting personal, telling your love story about your love, about your romance. So yeah.
And the
So now
best thing,
moving.
sorry to interrupt. And the best thing about romance is, although in every book you will see a boy, a girl, and some emotions, but there are so many shades of emotions that there are thousands and thousands of books written based on same themes. So that's the beauty of emotions.
And it also
Hmm,
reflects the human side of people. Everybody falls in love.
right.
I mean, 99% of people fall in love and 1% lie. So everybody.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Like even when you talk about the Bollywood films, like there's a gangster who is like ferocious, vicious, who murders people, and then there's a girl who he fell in love with, and just like that is a happy ending. That is a whole journey. So now moving ahead with my second question, love stories often resonate with readers on a personal level. What do you think is the key to creating a relatable and enduring characters in the romance genre? So one thing which I like often when I watch any kind of like when I consume any kind of content, whether it be OTT, movies, any animation or any book. So what I try to find the most is relatability. Like if I would have been the protagonist, what kind of decision would I be making? So, what is your take? Like, Himanshu ji, why don't you begin first? Like, what is your take? How do you, make it more relatable to the readers so that they can connect the best?
See, I always believe that whatever we write as an author, whatever we are writing, that we should write with some sort of truth which is within us. So don't write something which is too much fantasy. Write what is more relatable and what is more realistic. I'll just give you an example. Even if you are writing a chase scene, or a scene where police is searching through a mobile broadcasting, and they search them by tracing the mobile. So I have read few books where people have just wrote that portion also in a very fantasy manner, whereas that portion involves some technicality. So I always believe that when we are writing something, a proper research should be done, and that should be written in such a way that readers should relate it, that yes, this can happen. And same
Hmm,
goes with romance. If you're writing a romance, don't be so cheesy that
hmm,
reader will start feeling like, okay, this is not the way my girlfriend speaks to me or my boyfriend speaks to me. So those things need to be kept in mind while writing a book. So more realistic and more relatable things, what I prefer to write.
hmm. Aslam ji, your take on this?
So basically, creating relatable characters involves giving them authentic emotions, aspirations, and flaws, so that readers can relate them. And then if you give day-to-day conversations, and then you add the kind of conversation that we have with friends and with our girlfriends, etc., then people can easily relate to it. It
Right.
basically gives authentic flavor to fiction.
Hmm. Right. Arpit ji, your take on this?
I think, I mean, it's very basic. It's like watching a Salman Khan movie and watching an Irfan Khan movie. सलमान खान की मूवी से हम लोग रिलेट कभी भी नहीं कर पाते नेवर नेवर बट we find that relatability honesty in Irfan Khan and all those line of actors and that stays
Hmm,
true with the book as well. Till the time you do not write relatable character, you do not put yourself into that situation and ask yourself, how would I react if I was in that situation? It's not only about you, it's not only about your character, it's about the world which surrounds you. कि अगर एक छोटी सी भी चीज है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ अर्पित is a character uh, who uh, who is probably abused by a woman throughout his life, and then as a writer I have to actually know how an abused man would actually feel like. For that, I would probably have to reach out to to a man who has faced this. I would have to find out those छोटू छोटू सा डिटेल्स कि किस तरीके से आप अब्यूज हुए, कि आपकी वाइफ आपको मारती है, अगर मारती है तो what is your reaction when you come to home? How would you talk to your wife? Would you be scared when you enter your home? Would have what is your thought process? So if we as an author go into इससे भी ज्यादा छोटू छोटू सा डिटेल्स ना, would make characters more relatable. मतलब it should not be like हिमांशु very well said कि मतलब एकदम ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि यार कुछ भी चीज लिख दी और फिर ये चीज हो गया, जो एग्जांपल भी अभी हिमांशु ने दिया. We have to put ourselves into that situation, ask ourselves again and again, और सोचो कि हाँ यार ये अभी रियल लग रहा है कि नहीं लग रहा है. सिर्फ फैंटेसी तो नहीं लग रही है ना कि हाँ बस लिखने के लिए लिख दिया कि हाँ ठीक है ऐसा ऐसा होता है, ये हुआ ये हुआ ये हुआ ये हुआ खत्म. No, you have to stay true to it. I'll just give you one छोटू सा example. When I was writing a book which was based on an Indian cricketer and a Pakistani pop star का love story, so I actually made few Pakistani friends. आई टोल्ड देम कि मैंने एक एरिया ये डिजाइन किया है, आप मुझे बताइए लाहौर के अंदर ये जो अनारकली मार्केट है, हाउ डज इट लुक लाइक, लाहौर के अंदर ये वाला जो एरिया, हाउ डज इट लुक लाइक, बिकॉज आई हैव made a story on that, so I want to stay true to that emotions. So I actually made few Pakistani friends, made them click few pictures of their surroundings and have it sent to me. तो फिर
Hmm.
मैं बोला अरे तुम पागल आगल हो क्या भाई, तुम मुझे सबसे पहले तो एक चीज भेजो कि मैं मुझे आई वॉन्ट टू स्टे ट्रू टू दैट. तो फिर उन लोगों ने बोला कि चलो ठीक है, विल सेंड इट टू यू, एंड देन not only Indian but Pakistani newspaper also praised about it. It is written from a point of view when it feels like it has been written by a person who is Indian and Pakistani both. It is written from a neutral point of view. So I tried doing it once and thankfully it worked out for me. And I think most of us does the same way, and that is why हम जिन जिन की भी बुक वर्क करती है वो करती
Hmm. Right. Based upon this conversation, just a follow-up question would be, I want to talk about two things. That would be the side characters and the plot. So while you are writing any novel or while you are framing out a new book, so how do you structure out the whole plot? And what is your emphasis on the side characters? To me, actually, side characters actually portray about more about the protagonist. It tells more about the protagonist, how he would be going, how what would be the emotional intelligence of the character would be. So Aslamji, why don't you take us further from here?
So basically, the side characters are the characters who build the protagonist's character. And like in my novels, like in Friendship Bites, up to 40% of humor is because of my side characters. So actually, the side characters have stolen the scene as far as humor is concerned. Up to 60% of humor comes through them. So people feel happy when they read about them, and these characters only drift the reader away from agonies of the main characters. So it basically balances the interest that the reader may have in the book.
And talking about plot, how do you structure out the whole plot whenever you're writing a novel?
So it's basically a mix. It is used to basically drive the narrative in the way we want. The main story is fine, but the characters who are there, they drive the main characters' narrative.
Himanshu, your take on this?
Maybe I'll differ a bit because I feel that every character is equally important in a story, and I don't take any of my character as a side character or a main protagonist. Because while writing a book, I feel that every character must be given an equal importance. Then only a complete story can be made. Just for example, my next book is coming with fingerprints. I named as Sunflower Lily. That story is about a small town, and in that complete story, there are more than 50 characters. And with the start you will feel that okay, this is the main protagonist. After a few pages you will realize okay, someone else is the main protagonist. By the end you will realize that each 50 or 60 characters in that book, everyone is a main protagonist. It's a thriller, but everyone is a main protagonist. There is no side character in it. And I think that makes a story complete when each and every character is treated equally. Or if you read my last book, that was it's a national bestseller declared just 2-3 months back. You Are Still the One, that is also published by Fingerprints. And that it's a story about five friends, and each and every friend is equally important. If you'll just remove one of them, the story will look like an incomplete story. So every character, I feel there is no side character in a book.
Hmm. Arpit, your perspective on this?
So, I mean, I think, I mean, like he said, there's scope of every character in your story. I call them supporting characters, and without which this any story is incomplete. Because it's very important कि आप आपके protagonist, whatever protagonist that you have, is your story works the way it works because there are supporting characters. And like
Hmm.
how we generally do it on TV and films as well, that we need to uh, kind of change the screen every 2 to 3 minutes to make it more interesting. So we just cannot write only and only about our main protagonist. We have to give it look and feel of the surroundings as well. So I think it's very important. And uh, like Aslamji also said, certain times your main protagonist can't behave the way they are designed. So maybe a humor or maybe some other sort of emotions you can take it out from those characters if you design it that way. So that brings a lot of fun. Like in one of my books, You Are My Reason to Smile, there were two characters. Ranveer was the main protagonist and Lakshya was the supporting character. People loved Lakshya more than Ranveer because of his humor, because
Exactly.
of
Same
his
thing happened with Yeah, exactly. Same thing happened with my book also, Friendship Bites. The protagonist is Aryan. Okay, it's his story along with the other character, right? But people
exactly.
love Dave, the character who is, put humor in everything. He has
Yeah,
helped
yeah.
these characters, so he is more loved by people than the main characters.
100%. Like it happens in films as well, right? कुछ movies हमें ऐसी
Hmm.
लगती है we find supporting characters more entertaining, not only funny, more entertaining than the lead ones. So that's
Right.
what happens in books as well. So I think it's very important to design it the right.
Hmm. So, while you're framing out the characters, so after talking to numerous authors, what I could frame, like what commonality that I could frame out was that we put ourselves into our characters. There's a certain part of there's 10% of Arpit into a supporting character. There's 100% of Arpit into main character. So, is it ever like it might be a silly question, like is it ever like do you pick up the persona of the character that you have designed, or like how do you generally frame out when the character is important or coming? RPG, why don't you take us further from here?
So for that, I mean, I what I generally do is I take character from my surroundings and not only me. So I have a friend who behaves in a certain way which is interesting. So I'll put that in one of the characters that I write if I think that is going to work for that character. If I have had a bad boss in my life, for example, and I'm designing a character which is a bad boss, so I'll take those traits and put it into my that bad boss ka character. So I mean, and that's what observation is all about, right? We as a
Hmm.
writer observe more and write a little less. तो हम लोग यही करते हैं ना हमें कोई सा भी इंटरेस्टिंग थॉट आ रहा होता है तो वी जस्ट आई एम श्योर एवरीवन डज दैट वी जस्ट मेक अ नोट ऑफ इट इन मोबाइल we'll use it someday. So that's what we do. So
Hmm.
I mean, I think most of my friends' main traits and characters have been used in some of my books. I mean, in all of my books. So there is a friend of mine whose name is Manoj, and there's another one when there's a friend Aditi. So all of these people's interesting characters, I have just used them in some of the interesting characters in my book. So not only me, but then in fact, if I meet a person for 5 minutes and I found that character interesting, वो मैं लिख लेता हूँ and then I use it some. So as a writer, you are sucker for information, right?
Hmm.
So you take it from anywhere it is coming, and that's what I generally do.
Hmm. You take inspirations from observations around you, right?
We steal real people and put them into our character.
Himanshu ji, your perspective on this?
I do it in a little different way. When I start up a book, I think about my character. Okay, this is what the nature of a character is. How uh, he's an angry person or a soft-spoken person. So that level I decide, and later I leave it on my characters. So let my story progress, and as the sequences keep on coming, I just try to write what my character being that character will do in that situation, not by thinking that okay what I have to write about him, but I leave that what that character will be doing in that situation, and accordingly my characters keep on developing during the storyline. So like my last book there are five different characters. So one is funny, there's a girlfriend, she's more career oriented, then there is a main protagonist who is an army person. So the profession, the characterization is done in the beginning, and then I'll start moving the story and see what they perform in the stories. So I always say that I don't write my story, my characters write their own story, and that's the way the story progresses, what I believe.
Hmm. So, like when you are framing out a character, do you ever feel engrossed in? Do you ever take up the persona of the character? Like in the real life, you might have not noticed
It
that
definitely
you're
it
taking
definitely happens.
decisions.
No, no, it definitely happens, and sometimes you learn a lot from your own characters. And as I said in my last book, there is a very motivational character of an army person. And while reading that book, or even when I again go back and read my book, I learn a lot from that character. Or the girl in that book, she's suffering from cancer. She's very positive, even having a cancer, and she's just 17 years old. So that character I picked up from my mother. My mother passed away 5 years back because of cancer, but she was very positive during her complete therapy and all those things. So I picked up that character from my mother. So
Hmm.
and again, it's the only character which I picked up. Whatever she does in that story, she does because of the characterization what has been done to her.
Right. Aslam ji, your take on this?
So what I do till now, as I just said, ki every character is based on my own experiences, and they are the people whom I already know. So what I do, I even write with same names, and in the end, I just change names. So everything till now has been genuine.
Hmm.
Let's see what happens in future. I have many characters and many stories to write as of now.
Right.
Let's see. So I would means personally speaking, I would like to rely on genuine characters only.
Hmm. So, while I was introducing all three of you, one commonality, aside from being a national bestseller, was about storytelling. So, my next question is related to that only. So, romance can take various forms, from light-hearted movement to profound emotions. So, how do you balance the different aspects of love in your storytelling, ensuring a diverse and engaging reading perspective? So, Alpiji, why don't you take us from it?
So, I mean, there are two ways to write anything. I mean, one is what you feel uh, that should be written as a writer. This is what I would write, and people would relate to it. People would buy a book and talk about it. And then there is another way to write a story. That people like this sort of stories. People like this type of writing. People like this type of book. So I'll write it accordingly. So neither of them is right or wrong. What I generally do is I make a mix of both. Whenever I mean, when you are writing a book, you of course want it to sell. ऐसा नहीं कि मैंने एक बुक लिख दी और सिर्फ 500,000 किताबें बिकी and then I'm satisfied. No, I mean, I don't think any writer wants it. Every writer wants it to sell it in thousands. So you have to communicate whatever you want to communicate in a particular way when keeping your voice intact. But at the same time, you need to give it a little bit of commercial fix as well. You need to give it a little bit of commercial twist as well so that it makes it engaging for people to read it. So that's what I generally do. And I mean, what I also tried doing, I'm not sure whether I've succeeded in doing that or not. Every book is tagged as either this is young adult, or this is for kids, or this is for oldies, or this is for people who are just getting into their 40s or 30s. I put young characters as well. I put probably a kid as well. I'll probably put a little old person who is into 60s as well. So that I always say one thing: my book. I mean, anyone in the family can pick my book and read it, because there would be at least one character which you would relate with. ये मे बी अतिशय ने अगर बुक लिया है तो अतिशय विल एंजॉय इट प्रोबेबली अतिशय के पेरेंट्स भी उसको एंजॉय करेंगे if they are reading it, and then if there's a kid who is like 10, 12 years, 14 years, they can also read it and enjoy it. So from commercial point of view, I also do that to make it a little more diverse experience.
Himanshu, your take on this?
So as you said, I believe that most of the authors what we have in industry, we are author second, but we are a storyteller first. And I believe that narrating a story, I don't feel that what will happen after the narration of my story or getting published after that. Maybe Arpit is right that need to be looked into it, the commercial side also. But I believe that when we are true to our story and we are narrating a best story out of what we have in our mind, it will get picked up. Or and My work should be, or my aim should be to give the best story what I can narrate. That, and my story should actually let my readers pick my book, and then they should start talking about it. So the best story what we can bring, that should be the major goal what I have. Yeah.
Aslamji, your take on this?
So basically, for balancing the light and profound aspects of a storytelling, it requires a very subtle approach. So basically, you have to create a balance. So, like I just told in Friendship Bites, the readers feel happy when all the characters are together during the ragging time, college days, etc. But when misunderstanding creeps in between the main characters, then people say, just finish it, clarify things. So agonies, then light moments, they are in Friendship Bite. It's a blend of both aspects: moments of joy and profound agonies, everything.
I feel that when you're narrating a story, that story, whatever that story requires, that should come into that story. See, for example, I always say that my books are also that everyone can pick those books. It's either kid or adult or anyone can pick up my book. So it's always neat and clean. When I talk about my book, She Erased Her, I'll always say kids should not pick that book. Even a person who is below 18 years of age should not pick that book, because that's the requirement of that book. That book's is a pure erotic category. And that book has done wonders. So it is already a national bestseller. We have sold more than 25K copies of that, and just 12,000 copies over Kindle. So that book has sold not because the scenes or what is written inside that, but that was the requirement of this story, and that's the reason it was written into it. So I feel that whenever we are writing a story, as we all are storytellers, that it matters that what you are actually doing a justification, justifying your story or not. That is more important, and based on
Hmm.
that we have to write those things.
Hmm. Right. So, talking about storytelling, what would be your one ground rule that you just follow? That is a concrete thing that you follow everywhere. Himanshu, why don't you begin first?
My simple funda of writing a story is, when I start writing a story, I'm just having a brief thought in my mind that okay, this is what I want to narrate. So first of all, when you should have a thought that what you are going to narrate, then second step is that we should have some characters into it, and then leave that situation and characters together. Let them start writing their own story. This is what I believe. I'm only the person who is actually typing what they are doing. I'm not giving them direction, but they are giving me direction to write. This is what I feel.
Aslamji, your perspective?
So my belief is that people, it should be engaging and entertaining. I put a mix of everything in my books, like, and as far as making it interesting is concerned, even I don't know what is going to happen next. So the reader would obviously he would not know what is happening. So it creates interest. So this has
Arpit,
been with my
oh,
two
sorry.
books. And next one also I have I did the same thing. So I just went on creating story, building on that.
Hmm. Right. So, Arpit, your take on this?
So, I mean, I follow one rule that I make a one-liner of any story first, and then I live with it for about a month or two, and then I keep on thinking about it, ki how to make it better. So, I kind of make a germ into a concrete one paragraph later on. And after a couple of months, if I'm still excited about that particular one paragraph or one liner, then I start working on it. And because I mean, in that one liner doesn't need to be one liner only. It's more
Hmm.
of a paragraph or two, or maybe one page. And if it still excites me, I go forward with that story. And then I think, I mean, because I already have the characters in my mind, I think about the ending part first of where do I want to reach in that story. And if that gives me that kick कि नहीं यार अर्पित लिखना ही है, ये मजेदार है कुछ जो बनता है, then I decide the entire route to reach there. So then once I am fixed with this, that is how I generally write. Then I can decide my beginning, middle, and then when I already know the end. So it makes the journey a lot more interesting than the usual way.
I
Hmm.
also agree with Arpit ji. The novel starts with one paragraph only, then it becomes a page, then two pages,
Yeah.
so on. And
Right. So now with that, my next question to all of you would be: romance is a universal theme, yet it can be interpreted in myriad ways. So how do you approach bringing cultural or regional nuances into your love stories to make them more authentic? I believe Arpitji was telling earlier about the Lahore market and making Pakistani friends. So Arpitji, why don't you begin first?
I mean, yeah, I mean, pretty much that I told you that you need to know about that world first. You need to know the culture you are making your story upon. I mean, अगर मैं पाकिस्तान के बारे में या यूएस के बारे में कुछ लिख रहा हूँ, but I don't know anything about it. So I think maybe 50% of the people who have not gone there would still say, ki, okay. But then the other 50 people who have gone there, have experienced Pakistan and US, they would say, what the fuck?
Hmm.
तो पता ही नहीं है कि what that particular place looks like, how people do behave with themselves, how their streets looks like, how do people talk to each other, what is their behavioral pattern. कुछ भी लिख दोगे और हम पढ़ लेंगे ऐसा थोड़ी ना होता है. So you need to know about that. I mean, sometimes it takes you months and months. Sometimes it takes you just 7 days to kind of know about it. It's very important to talk to a person and know about their culture. So if I'm
Hmm.
writing something on Assam, I need to know how Assamese people react. What do they eat? When do they sleep? When do they get up? What do they do when they don't have any work to do? What is their pastime? I need to know them because I'm sure that is very different from how a Mumbaikars would live their life.
Hmm.
So very important to get into the, I won't say deep root, but at least have a basic understanding of that. कि कोई ये ना कल को उठ के बोल दे कि कुछ भी लिख दिया है. You at least have your
Hmm.
point कि नहीं ये सोच कर लिखा हुआ है. You have your research ready.
Right. You have to make sense with the reader, like
Yeah.
wheresoever they are reading from.
I mean, if someone from Assam would be reading it, shouldn't say कि यार क्या क्या
Hmm.
बकवास है. They would be saying हाँ
Right.
ठीक. I mean, it's correct to an extent. At least इतना
Right.
होना चाहिए.
Right. So, Aslamji, your take on this?
so basically, it involves a lot of research and respectful understanding of perspective. I don't go into such territories which I don't know. So I don't get into a territory which I don't know. So, for example, in my first book, The Fortune Hunters, I've dealt with the toughest, you know, theme, which is on interreligious love and marriage. So, and that too in two diverse geographies, which is Lucknow and then Kolkata, UP and West Bengal. So I knew about them, so I wrote about them. So you will find authentic kind of biryanis of Lucknow and then of Kolkata also, in which you will find potato. So
Hmm.
I've included everything just to bring humor into that. In Friendship Bites, I've dealt with two parallel love stories. One between a Hindu couple, then the other one is Muslim couple. But their stories are so intertwined that when a particular couple gets affected, the whole setup collapses. So it basically the person has to know, the author has to know what he is writing, the cultures, the geographies, everything, as per me.
Himanshu ji, your take on this?
Uh, I totally agree with what Arpit said. So, writing a story is not only about writing a story, but it's more of a research work. So, anything if you are writing, it should be authentic, and readers should feel that authenticity. So, just for example, in my last book, there's a sequence where my main protagonist, she goes to London for further studies. So, I have not been to London, and I need to write that. Almost, I'll say the second half of my book is belongs to London. So to do that, what I did, I actually did a lot of research. I studied about London. I picked up many pictures of the locations which I wanted to write in my story. I tried to look at those pictures. If there is some restaurants in those locations, I searched for those locations. What menu those locations, those restaurants serve, I research on that level. So if you read my book, you'll find that when she goes to a restaurant, she orders something, and she gets a crab in that. So I have never eaten a crab, or I don't even know about that dish. But that particular name I have taken from one of the menu card of the restaurant, what I have mentioned. And all
Hmm.
those things you need to clearly mention in your book, and that is only possible if you research properly. So then only you can bring that authenticity to your story.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Gone are the times when you would write anything and people would just read it and say that yes, it was a good. You get into details
Yes.
and how.
Unless you do a proper research, we cannot give that authenticity, I feel.
So there's a
Yeah.
follow-up question, or there might be a dark side. So often, at times, you must have heard of this. Like in the Western culture, Indian people are more of depicted as people with naan or curry, ya fir biryani, and even like when you talk about like internally when we talk about India, under like Mumbai is often depicted as putting pav and everything, or like Delhi is often depicted as people with more of abusive language or chole bhaturas. So I believe like portraying these things often have a dark side to it as well. Like when you might be like you might call it as humor, but you take it often at two times like at two extent where it might offend people. So what would be your take? Like when you're researching or while you're using the humor, so how do you balance these things? Like when you don't offend actually anybody. So Himanshu, why don't you begin first?
Can you come up to your question again?
So I was saying, like when we are talking about particularly researching about any culture or any nuances. So you actually depict kind of things like Indian people are more of depicted as naan or biryani in Western culture, and when we're talking about Mumbai, it is often depicted as putting power in everything. Or when we're talking about Delhi, it is like people with more of abusive language or violence. So when we are talking about researching or putting out the right facts, so how do you not offend the people? How do you balance things out?
See, again, I reiterate. We are storytellers, and we need to write our story. If my character is abusive, obviously he will use that abusive language. If my character is from Mumbai, he will be eating paws. So, based on what my characters want to narrate the story, they will pick up those things. So, as I said, my book She Raised Her, it's an erotic thriller because
Hmm.
that book has that need. My character need to go on that level. So that was done in there. So whichever country, whichever food, whichever religion it is, if my character want to get it done in that story, I'll get it done without thinking that if someone is getting hurt. Obviously, uh, that will be in my mind that okay, I should not hurt someone's sentiments. But yes,
Hmm.
if that story requires that thing, it will definitely comes out.
Hmm. Right. RPG, your take on this?
So I do love offending people to be very frank. But anyways, I mean, coming back to the topic, I mean, the truth is not every Mumbaiker eats vada pav. Not every Delhiite loves eating chole bhature. and not every Indian is fond of naan. So these are stereotypes, and which is the
Hmm.
easiest way to do you, to be frank. I mean, uh, पता है कि हाँ दिल्ली का है तो बोलेगा कि तू जानता नहीं मेरा बाप कौन है.
Right.
So this is the easiest way to crack a humor, which kind of gets boring after a certain point of time. And even if you want to use it, you can use it in a such a way that there is a character from Delhi, and then there is a character from Mumbai. They are having a word with each other, and then Mumbai wala will probably say, "तू जानता नहीं मेरा बाप कौन है," ऐसे कुछ बोलेगा ना तू, and then he can come up with a better reply. Not every Delhiite
Hmm.
says that. Maybe probably a better punch. So that is how we can address it. But at the same time, I mean, the space for laughter is a lot if you are writing a story, be it any story you write. I mean, there's always scope for laughter. आप thriller लिखो, आप suspense लिखो, आप drama लिखो, आप कुछ भी लिखो. And there are very different ways of getting the humor and the laughter. And the best one at that is observation. Nothing connects you like observation. कि हाँ यार ऐसा तो हमने भी देखा हुआ है, ऐसा होता है. And that's when your reader connects with you and laugh at that. कि हाँ यार ये तो मेरे साथ में भी हुआ है, read that. So yeah, I mean, I don't use stereotypes. Like I said, I love offending people. I don't, but I still don't use a stereotype वाला humor. मैं कुछ अलग तरीके से कुछ laughter लाने की कोशिश करता हूँ. More from the observational side.
Aslamji, your take on this?
So Arpit just said that he loves offending people, but I'm very careful in that. So I just don't want to hurt the sentiments of people. However, I use authentic and genuine facts to put genuinity or authenticity in the characters and the narrative. So if like in the Fortune Hunters, if the main character is from Lucknow and he is going to Kolkata, and the kind of biryani he eats in Lucknow is different from what he is eating in Kolkata, then he will say it ki why is potato in this biryani, or why is egg in this biryani and there is no masala in it. So just to bring humor
असलम जी
Very
भूख
in
लगवा
that.
दी अब
observation.
आपको. भूख
And
लगवा दोगे आप बिरयानी बिरयानी बोल के.
so for friendship bites, I'll say one of my friends called me and he said ki you have used Afreen. There is a character called Afreen. You have used her a lot. You have put excessively lust and sex for her. So I said ki what can I do? The character is like that. She's driving the narrative, the whole story. So I cannot make her a Sati Savitri and uh, murder the story. So that's the way it is.
Hmm. Right.
I think ये चीज सिर्फ बुक्स में नहीं है. ये आप you become a little more. असलम जी, if you were there in TV, you would have been a perfect fit. क्योंकि हम लोग जब टीवी लिखते हैं ना, उसके अंदर जोक भी लिखते हैं तो सब मीटिंग में हंसते हैं जोर जोर से. बट आफ्टर सर्टेन पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम दे से नो वी कांट यूज दैट, इट इज गोइंग टू हर्ट अ लॉट ऑफ सेंटिमेंट्स.
Correct.
लाफ,
I'll tell you.
लाफ, एंड देन दे आर लाइक नो नो नो, बट देन हंसाओ लेकिन इतने से दायरे के अंदर. सो दैट्स व्हाट हैपेंस इन टीवी. मतलब
But
मैंने लिटरली एक चैनल मीटिंग के अंदर कुछ एक ऐसा जोक मार दिया था विच वाज नॉट वल्गर, विच वाज नॉट इवन ऑफेंसिव. But then they were like, no, we can't touch that love and kiss and that वाला part. मैं बोला आपकी टीवी ऑडियंस को क्या लगता है कि परियां बच्चे छोड़ के जाती है, बाकी कुछ चीजें नहीं होती. तो so that is not only the truth. I mean that happens. I mean we Indians, we as an Indian are very sentimental people, and हाँ अच्छा है कहीं कहीं पे ध्यान भी रखना चाहिए.
Right. So, like my next question revolves around the same only. You might have answered it in a certain way, but I just want to have it the answer in a concrete way. So,
Hmm.
laughter often plays a vital role in love stories, right? So, how do you balance humor with the emotional depth required to make a lasting impact on the readers? Like, if there would be more humor, the emotional depth would be slightly less, where you won't be able to connect emotionally on that level. However, if there would be emotional depth more and humor would be a little less, it would be vice versa. So what is your take on this, Aslamji? Why don't you begin, since like you have told earlier that 40 to 60% of the humor is
exactly.
derived. from the
Yeah,
side characters of your novel.
exactly. So basically, unlike the traditional literature, we are contemporary writers. Okay, I think Arpit, Himanshu, everybody is like that only. So we, I personally feel the commercial value is important. So to give that, I cannot put drama around everything. So I have to balance it with humor and romance and everything. So like I said earlier also, my main characters, if the story is romance, the main characters drive that, the supporting characters put humor around it. So that's my writing style. And in all my novels, the seriousness of romance is there, but the bromance puts laughter and humor in that. So romance and bromance go simultaneously to keep the story engaging and entertaining.
Hmm. Right. Himanshuji, your perspective?
Again, I'll say the same thing, that let story do that. If my story want to be humorous, it will be humorous, and if it's sad, it will be sad, and my characters will automatically do what they want to do, because I'm not going to guide them. My characters will guide me
Hmm.
what need to be written.
You let the story flow in
Yes, I'll go
whatever
with my
direction
story.
you're
Yeah,
going.
I always go with the story flow.
Hmm. Right. RPG, your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for laughter. So I keep figuring out the space where I can get some good laughs. Uh, because I mean, like in one of my books, and my last book, "Gift Me a New Beginning." In that, I mean, and it always goes with the character. I mean, of course, you cannot go beyond the character arc. You cannot say things which your characters won't say. But then you need to know that line, but then you need to figure out those little bit spaces for laughter as well, because readers enjoy that as well. And I also think it from that point of view. So there was a scene, just one line of the scene, which I thought of. I thought ki, what it would be like for a 25-year young guy to have a sex ka discussion with his 80 years old grandfather. I mean, about the first sex ka experience. I mean, of course, you can. I mean, we don't discuss it with our families, right? Uh, but then to have that discussion, which starts with awkwardness, goes towards a little bit of comfort, and then again ends it with awkwardness. So that brings the laughter. I think laughter आपको वहां हर जगह मिलेगा जहां जहां सीरियसनेस, जहां सीरियसनेस है आपने अगर उस चीज को, if you just flip your camera, if you just flip your camera from a laughter point of view, that is going to give you a lot of laughter. Like I'm writing a film right now in which there's a scene where there's a stand-up comic who has gone to a funeral of her best friend, एंड देन किसी ने ऐसे ही कह दिया कि अगर आप यहाँ पर आइए तो कुछ दो बातें हैं, सो दे प्रोबेबली मेंट कि आप यूलॉजी में कुछ बातें कहिए कि व्हाट यू फेल्ट फॉर योर फ्रेंड, एंड शी थॉट कि दे एक्सपेक्ट मी टू डू अ स्टैंड अप ओवर, सो शी डज अ स्टैंड अप इन फ्रंट ऑफ एंटायर मैयर जो बैठी हुई है. So the space where you are not even allowed to say hi to each other, that person is doing a stand-up comedy over there. I'm sure whenever the film gets shot and gets releases, this scene will be the most talked about. So मुझे लगता है कि laughter comes at weirdest of the places, and I figure out my spaces for laughter. कि this is where I can give a little bit of laughter to my readers and audience.
Hmm. Right. So, while I would love this conversation to go on and on, we are at the end part of the session, and I believe RPG also has to leave in another 10 to 15 minutes. So, we will just wind up this session quickly. So, this is a time for the individual questions that I would be asking to all of the panelists. So, starting off with Mr. Himanshu. So, Rhythm Roger, The Secret of Electron, is a unique telecom fantasy book. How does this departure from traditional romance genres contribute to your exploration of love in unexpected ways?
So see, as I said always, that I'm a storyteller. I'm not, I never say that I'm a romance author or a young adult author. I write whichever story comes to my mind, and I feel like Arpit said, we write just one paragraph or one line, and then we keep thinking about it, that whether should I continue with or not. So it's just like that. So my first book was a thriller recollecting the end. Then Chariots of Mahabharat was a mythological thriller. Then My Mute Girlfriend, I'm Always Here With You were romance. Then She Erased Her against a suspense thriller, an erotic suspense thriller. Then Rhythm Project came up because it's a story which was always in my mind. Because I'm a telecom professional and I wanted to bring out that story, and it's an 8-part story. So till now it's only 2 parts which are out, and they both are national bestsellers. So that's how Rhythm Roger happened. So it's not a romantic story, but it's a young adult fiction. You can say it like it's something like Harry Potter. And after that, again, I switched to romance because I wanted to narrate a story. You Are Still the One, and that's how You Are Still the One happened. And the next one, which is about to release in April or May, it's against a suspense, a thriller, but a Sunflower Lily. So I keep on switching my genres based on the story what I want to narrate, and that is my funda of writing. I don't want to keep myself engaging on only one thing like romance or suspense, but whichever best story I can narrate to my readers, I want to bring that out, and this is the way I write my books.
Right. So, Arpit ji, Aslam ji, would you like to add something to Himanshu ji's answer?
Aslamji,
So basically, I was given to understand that romance sells the most.
That's
However, I
yes,
like
it's correct.
thriller. Okay. So recently, I was having a conversation with Arup Bose, who is my publisher. I said, "What do you want?" I don't want to write love story. He said, "Thriller is selling the most at present, or non-fiction, historical non-fiction." So I told him ki I am, I like Mughal history a lot. ठीक है? I study it a lot, and I know the stories around, Delhi siege, and then that the time when Mughal dynasty just was collapsing. So I said ki I want to write it, but I don't want to write it as a non-fiction historical. I said ki I don't know if tomorrow somebody says ki comes and says ki why did you write this? This never happened. Then what will I say? How will I prove it? So I want to write it as historical fiction. So he said ki write, then we'll see. So one has to be very careful.
Arup always loves thriller. So if you'll ask him, he will always say his first choice will be thrillers.
Acha,
always.
I didn't know that.
Right.
Right. Arpit ji, would you like to add something?
No, I think they pretty much said everything.
Great. So, my next question would be to you only. Your involvement in script writing for shows like Lockup and Dance Plus showcases versatility. So, how does your experience in scripting impact your approach to creating compelling love stories?
So I think it's the other way around. Uh, I mean, my novel writing helps me in all of the things that I write. Because as a novel writer, you write it independently. There are not much stakeholders to it, so you write whatever you want to write in it. So your imagination is at your max, which helps me write for this show. So though I have written a lot of shows in the past 7 8 years. When people ask me, what do you prefer? Do you want to be called as an author or as a TV, the web OTT writer? I always say I love being called as an author first, and then all of this. So because once you have written a book and all, that's your first event. That I think that is the maximum thing. I say कि film writing वगैरह भी ठीक है के बाद में हो जाती है, but when you are writing a novel, you are all by yourself. So you are putting a maximum efforts over there. So that helps me in writing TV shows and everything, and not the other way.
Hmm. Right. Aslam ji, Himanshu ji, would you like to add something to Arpit ji's answer?
I think Arpit has perfectly framed that answer. So
Yeah, I'm also with Arpit.
Great. So my next question, my last question actually would be to Mr. Aslam. So Friendship Bites explore themes of love, friendship, and revenge. So how do you approach weaving a multifaceted narrative that captures the complexities of relationships?
So basically, I was always fascinated by the complexities of human relationships. And when these themes, friendship, love, betrayal, and revenge, they intertwine, they present life experiences which are both captivating and profound. So I wanted to delve deep into these emotions and present a narrative that resonates with the readers on personal basis. So so that was the reason behind my exploration of these themes.
Right. So, Arpit Himanshu ji, would you like to add something to it?
I think we all talked about in a way, so I think there's nothing new that I can add right now. If Himanshu would like to add anything to it.
No, same my side. Nothing additional.
Great. So with this, we are at the end of the session now. Thank you so much, Arpit ji, Aslam ji, Himanshu ji, for joining us and taking our time to contribute to this wonderful initiative. We would love to see you more in our future events as well. And till then, thank you so much.